from all of you. A number of you did in fact mention finances, and I think the city's financial situation, both present and future, has been the subject of some debate among residents. So there's a couple of questions here that focus specifically on the city's finances. As we mentioned earlier, I will ask the question. There will be an individual who I will invite to start. All of you may respond to these questions, and you don't have to if for whatever reason you choose not to respond. That's fine. Just let me know, we'll move along. So the first question was, and again, just to remind you, these questions basically came from email sources, from people contacting PVRRG. So these are questions from kind of outside in the community. Based on the Financial Advisory Committee's trend analysis, the city's revenue is growing at approximately 2% a year, and expenses are growing at a little over 3% a year. It appears there are 4 options to deal with this. One is you can draw down reserves, you can reduce expenses, raise revenue, sell assets. So the question is, what approach would you take, and why would you take it? Kevin, I'm going to invite you to start first if you're willing to, and we'll go around from there.
Okay. Well, the first thing we do is take a good look at the budget to see where we could cut expenses. The Financial Advisory Committee is a group of very talented people. I know several of them. I think we need to listen to them, listen to their suggestions, and we need to listen to the residents. This is a talented city. We have a lot of talent here of all kinds, and I think the city council needs to listen to everybody and take everything into account, listen to staff reports, and really no decision gets made until we're at this table, at this seat, because we won't have all the information. You get the information from the FAC, you get the information from the residents, you get staff reports, and obviously from my colleagues. My colleagues, some of them have some institutional knowledge, and they would help us guide along. But I would say the first thing we would do is cut expenses, try to include revenue, increase revenue, and then go back to the voters to see if give them some choices.
Great, thank you. Victoria, do you want to comment? You are, if you want to be.
This way?
Yeah, always that way.
Okay. Well, Kevin hit on the key points probably. So, we're a community that has limited revenue sources, basically property taxes and some concessions. So we're a little handcuffed there. There's probably some things that we could do that I think someone mentioned, being more creative on our revenue sources. I don't know if there's a lot of things out there that would wildly move the needle, but things, I also sit on the Finance Advisory Committee. For example, I think there's a lot of grant opportunities out there. So then when we have, certain infrastructure things, there could be government grants or things. I think in just what we've looked at, some cities that are successful at growing revenue, they kind of either have a staff person who looks at grants full time, or actually I think there's consultants that actually will do that work for you. So anyway, something like that on the revenue side. On the expense side, we need to cut, the little sign's going up. On the expense side, yes, we need to look at efficiencies and cutting expenses. Selling property, no. And so spending down reserves, everybody knows I hate that. I've always been very vocal because once you spend them, it's hard to get them back. So efficiencies, a little bit of revenue, cutting expenses.
Thank you. Jennifer?
Okay, that is short. I think we need...
Is it a minute or 90 seconds? I thought we were supposed to get.
Oh, no, it was a minute, I'm sorry.
Dang, I thought the little memo said 90 seconds. Okay.
The first one did.
Okay, sorry, my
Please.
mistake.
Can I have my time started over?
Yeah, for sure. I was trying to get you 30 more seconds.
Part of Victoria's too, apparently.
Yeah. Anytime you're ready.
Okay. I think we need to take a hybrid approach. We can't rely on one single thing. In terms of expenses, certainly we need to be always cognizant of how we can reduce our expenses. I'm not an operations person. I don't want to go in and line item like we had to do after Measure D. Instead, I would advocate something more of saying staff come back with a budget that's 2% less and let them figure it out. In terms of revenue, we are hampered. We rely on property tax, and we have a lot of long-term residents that have low property tax. I love that we have the diverse community, but it does lower our property tax. We don't have any sales or hotel or any kind of commercial tax, and 27% of our city is parkland, which doesn't generate any revenue. So I would look for creative revenue sources, but again, I know the Financial Advisory Committee is trying to do that. No one's come up with any meaningful revenue. So I think we need to get creative in terms of public-private partnerships, maybe when we're thinking of something with this building. And reserves, I know we are doing a reserve analysis. We are at over 10 million right now. I think perhaps that could come down just a little bit, but I probably wouldn't go below the 7.2.
Thank you.
Okay.
The good news is this is a dress rehearsal for League of Women Voters. They're going to give you a minute also, just so you know.
All right.
Michael, anytime you're ready.
The other good news is she didn't get a sign. We have to face the monster, folks. We have a big, big, big escalating pension problem. And we need to face the cause of it. And we need to head it straight on and split it in two. We need to look at our historical pension obligations and meet them and stick with them and see them through. And we need to look at today going forward and make some adjustments and make some changes. Let me get one thing completely out of the way because it's flying around the neighborhood. I am 100,000% in support of our local police department, and I have no desire to bring any other organization in. Now that we've gotten that out of the way, we need to look at ways to deal with things like dispatch and administrative support and things that are not specific to safety in our police department, because there are ways that we can improve our efficiencies and reduce costs and look at dispatch and maybe use centralized dispatch to actually really address and hit that from a cost reduction perspective. I got my sign.
Thank you. Betty Lynn?
All right. So last year, we were able to cut $1.3 million because of failure of Measure D. Wasn't enough. We know that. But at some point, you have to balance how much we cut and the level of service that we get. So maybe cutting too much more isn't the right answer. I was thinking maybe we can do something that's a little more creative in talking to state legislators and talking about pension. They changed from the classic plan to the pepper plan, which in police have to contribute more. But there are other formulas that we can do. So this is not just talks amongst our city and how much money we prepay, which that's absolutely important. But this needs to change at a state level. And for people like us that have the connections with the state legislators, that's a very easy conversation to have. Now, also, we know order a lot of things online, right? Amazon, the sales tax goes to the originators. Why can't it come to our city? That's another conversation to have. Maybe we should look at concessions and see if they're the best use of our revenue generation. Maybe something there needs to change too. But I would keep with the reserves because that's important, and I wouldn't really cut too much more. That's it.
Okay, thank you. David?
I'm not going to repeat everything that other people have said. I may try to augment it. On revenues, I think we need to look outside the box. We can look at potentially non-revenue from, or not outside Palos Verdes revenue, such as a foundation. I would like to explore a foundation similar to what I did with the City of Los Angeles and the Los Angeles Parks Organization. Expenses. Yes, we've looked at object expense line expenses, but we haven't looked at the way in which we do business. We need to take a hard look at the processes, the operational approaches to our various businesses. Today, corporate America utilizes a tremendous amount of outsourcing, which needs to be considered, whether it be in some of the things that Mike Kemp's just suggested or other departments. How can we share some of our resources with our sister brothers on the Hill and the other communities? As far as the pension is concerned, we definitely need a pension strategy. And we are not going to be able to change what was done yesterday, but we need to do it in a prospective manner.
Great, thank you.